Hi there. I'm joined today with Jerilynn Daniels, who is 12 years at RBC, and we've worked together now for almost 10 years in terms of collaboration. And Jerilynn is the Regional Director of Community Marketing and Citizenship for Alberta and the Territories. And we're going to talk today about some of the challenges that we work on together regarding supporting youth. And so I'm just going to pause there and welcome Jerilynn. Tell us a little bit about some of the details of what you do.
Well, thanks. It's really nice to be here. Thanks, Cassy, for having me. So my role as Community Marketing and Citizenship Director, it really revolves around, I guess, three areas. So I manage the sponsorships for RBC in our market, the donations, so our philanthropic contributions, as well as marketing support for our network of employees across the Alberta and Territories region.
Okay. And so now when you're looking at the sort of the areas of need, I guess, or the problems that through your work you're able to help community address and solve, what are some of the key criteria or areas where you say, oh, this is something that is of interest to you, your mandate, RBC's mandate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I might delve into a little bit of history. So we're currently in about year 7 of a 10-year commitment called RBC Future Launch. And there was a fairly significant amount of research that went into how we landed on what we were going to support. And so as we were doing a bit of a revision of our philanthropic portfolio, I will say, there was some research done and a landscape study done around what is it that RBC could hang their hat on, what were the pressing issues that we were seeing in the Canadian landscape, and then how could RBC impact that. And so there was, as I said, a considerable amount of research done. And what we learned through that research is that there's quite a disparity between how prepared young people feel for the future of work as they're coming out of school, be it high school or post-secondary, as opposed to how prepared the educational institutions feel they're doing. So the educational institutions felt like they were doing a great job preparing young people. And when the young people were surveyed, it became clear that, in fact, they did not feel prepared. And so this was the impetus for RBC Future Launch, which is the I'll say the overall name for our leading investment in the community. And so RBC Future Launch was announced in 2017. It's a 10-year, $500 million commitment to preparing young people for the future of work. And specifically, there's kind of 4 areas that we're focused on. So we're looking at helping young people increase their networks. We've all heard the adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and young people are coming out saying we don't have strong networks. So that's one area. The second area was work integrated learning. So boots on the ground experience for young people to really solidify that they were going in the right direction, aligned to their passions. So things like co-ops, internships, etc. And then the third area is skills development. So really helping young people to come out with the skills that are required by our future workforce. And then overarching to that is youth mental health. We know that youth can't reach their full potential if they're not mentally healthy. And so that portfolio encompasses 50% of the investments that we're making in community. And so then going back to your question around what are the key criteria, we're a programmatic funder, so we're looking to fund programs rooted in evidence with measurable outcomes. We want to know that by investing in a particular program that we're going to be able to move the needle on that particular issue. And then our portfolio is rounded out by a couple of other areas. We have an environmental focus really around technology and its impact on climate and climate change. So that would be one. And then the RBC Emerging Artists Program, so helping artists bridge the gap between emerging and established. So that makes up our funding portfolio. But again, Future Launch making up 50% of our total investments, which this year will be about $170 million.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a fantastic summary. And I know, just from what I know about developing strategic frameworks, that took a long time to develop and really think through that strategic framework. That's fantastic. Thanks for that great overview, Jerilynn. And so as you were speaking about the 4 key areas, I have, of course, a great understanding of how MindFuel and RBC have collaborated because, of course, we focus on network development for youth. And over the last 10 years with our youth innovation programming, that consistently is ranked one of the top sort of preferred outcomes by our student participants. We also do focus on the skills building, specifically in synthetic biology, AI, robotics, machine learning. And then the third thing is we tangentially cover mental health support, and we have a whole mindfulness element, I guess, if you will, to our programs. Now, here's something that I get asked a lot as CEO of MindFuel is how do you know that the programs are in fact doing, or the investments in RBC's case are actually doing what you want them to do? How do you get a sense of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've invested heavily in measurement. And so we know what gets measured gets done. We've all heard that. We have implemented a pretty sophisticated program that we ask all of our Future Launch recipients who are receiving at a certain envelope of funding to implement pre and post surveys of their participants of the programming that they're offering. And what that does is it gives not only us an idea around how that's going in terms of, are you accomplishing the things that you had proposed you would do, but also gives our charity partners a benchmark. So our charity partners MindFuel would have access to their dashboard of the feedback that's coming in from the program participants that are participating in the RBC funded programs. And so it's just been a bit of an iterative process, I guess, in terms of fine-tuning our measurement. But we've really tried to we have moved beyond that anecdotal feel-good measurement to actual data that can tell us how the programs are doing. So we're really proud of that.
And over the course of 10 years, you get to iterate and perfect, right? To make sure that the impacts are heading in the direction that everyone wants them to. I think that's fantastic. The last question I have, and this is more of, I always like to hear the personal stories or the personal moments where you say, wow, this makes me feel really good hearing this outcome of this program. What have you identified personally or professionally that you've thought we really are making a difference?
Oh, there's so many. So RBC has invested in a number of scholarship programs, recognizing that marginalized youth make up a huge percentage of Canada's youth population. I think at the start, prior to starting the recording, you'd shared 8 million young people and 6.4 of them would be considered marginalized in some way. So we've implemented a number of different programs and that would help to support those marginalized youth having proper access to education. 2 examples that I might cite are a scholarship program, one for Indigenous youth, one for Black youth. And we will award up to 20 per year across the country for each of those 2 demographics. Here in Alberta, we've been really successful with that program in that with the last iteration of the Black Youth Scholarship Program, which incidentally will provide a recipient with $10,000 a year for up to 4 years. So it could essentially be almost a full ride, depending on what post-secondary they're going to. Alberta has taken the lion's share of those scholarships, both on the Black youth side as well as on the Indigenous youth side. So we're super, super proud of that, recognizing that there are a lot of marginalized youth that need that extra support. and that we're happy to be able to do that. I was talking to actually one of our charity partners this morning who shared with me that some of the graduates from that program that we had been funding, one youth just got accepted into Princeton, 2 youth got accepted into 2 law schools that they had applied for, so they actually have a choice. And then one just received a very prestigious scholarship. I think he told me it was $120,000 for this young person for their post-secondary education. So nothing to do with RBC from the standpoint of those are not our scholarships, but the funding that we were providing to this specific program was then in turn launching these young people into these fantastic opportunities, much like what MindFuel does. There's some great success stories coming out of MindFuel of students that have participated in the various programs you have that have gone on to do big things, and that's really exciting.
That's a great example. Thank you for that. Now, just for those that are tuning in, everyone should go Google RBC scholarships, but it'll if somebody Googles RBC scholarships, they'll find the page, or do you want to direct them?
Nope, you can totally do that. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And then, my final thoughts on this, one of the key things that I've really appreciated about working with RBC over the last 10 years is, we talk about empowering youth, and through RBC's Future Launch program and through MindFuel's Tech Futures Challenge program, this is, what we're aiming to do. We know that Canada has, out of all the OECD countries, Canada has the highest rate of post-secondary educated youth. But to your point, when we start breaking down the demographics of those populations who are in that post-secondary educated group, there is a complete deficit of underrepresentation of Indigenous, of racialized youth, of economically disadvantaged youth, of females in the STEM fields, and frequently rural and remote, because they don't have access to the campuses that urban students have, or the cost to attend, of course, is prohibitively high because they have a bunch of other costs. So I really, really have a tremendous amount of respect for what RBC is doing through Future Launch. And I've so appreciated our collaboration over the last 10 years in solving some of these big problems. And I'll look forward to continuing to work together. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today and learning a bit more about RBC's Future Launch. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.